Yes, indeed. We are back on the one and only The Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. I am Jay York Football alongside, as always, Mic'd Up Sports One. How you doing over there?
What up, what up? I'm good. I'm ready for just a classic helmet matchup. Steelers, Cowboys. It doesn't get any prettier than that in the NFL. Rivalry that, man, dates back to the 70s. It's kind of a bummer we get to see them once every 4 years, but we have to embrace it and appreciate it whenever it does happen. So they haven't been in town technically in 8 years? I was at that game 8 years ago. I was working it, and I remember it well. It was a
Tony
shootout.
Romo.
Zeke had no, it was Prescott still, I think. Maybe I could be wrong. Zeke had just a huge run in like the fourth quarter, and the Steelers ended up losing.
He was cooking.
But yeah, bro. While I must have been asleep at the wheel at that game because I don't remember who started at quarterback. But speaking of sleep,
I just took a shot in the dark and said Tony
wow,
Romo.
that's a good segue. Sleep and shot in the dark.
There you go. So here is our great partnership. We do it every episode just to remind you that you could get 10% off Mantis Sleep, the only mask designed and optimized for the deepest sleep possible. Any environment, whether you're traveling, whether you're an early riser like myself, make sure you use our code 6Steelers for 10% off. Again, that's 6Steelers for 10% off. You won't even know it's on, and you'll sleep great. Get that 8 hours. And then a shout out to our partners over at Homage. I'm wearing a shirt courtesy of them. You see the old school Steeler right there, 1961. So comfy. Probably, some of my favorite shirts, pop culture, anything. They have it all under the sun, but definitely check out the Steeler stuff. Learn more about Homage with the link in the description below, and be sure to use our code. And hey, you got the people riled up now, Mike, so why don't we get to it?
It was Dak, 35-30 Cowboys. They improved to 8-1. Wow. Zeke 2 touchdowns. Dez Bryant a touchdown. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that game well. And I don't know if we're gonna have a shootout this weekend, but I want to encourage you to go to DraftKings Sportsbook and take a look at some of those player props and lines, whether you call it a touchdown, a tutty in for 6. Touchdowns matter more. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We don't care how they score, and we want to bet on touchdowns. DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering if you're ready to place your first bet. How about something simple? Like we've said it. It's the word of the day, touchdowns. Go to DraftKings Sports app, make your pick.
George
Steelers,
Pickens,
Cowboys.
anytime touchdown.
I don't hate it. 43.5 Steelers, Cowboys. Pickens is probably due to get in the end zone. He hasn't happened yet this season. So if you're ready to do a touchdown dance your own, new DraftKings customers, $5 to get 200 in bonus bets. Instantly use our code 6Sports. You see it on the bottom of the screen. 200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. It's an incredible deal. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
Yeah, and we have a great guest coming up. So, Jimmy, what do you say? Let's get to it and get started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Blackout. Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
All right. He's lead NFL analyst over at Fantasy Alarm, host on Sirius XM. Does it all from fantasy to betting to just general sports knowledge across the board. We're thrilled to bring in none other than Andrew Cooper up there in Beantown. Andrew, what's going on?
What's happening, guys? I totally forgot we were doing a show. I was on my other screen looking at Pat's gear on Homage. This website's awesome, dude. I've never seen this before. I'm like, I got my cart's already got like starter jackets in it and all sorts of stuff. So, man.
Yeah, it's great.
Heck yeah, reasonable prices. Jordan and I can honestly attest. Like,
and they are. I'm not just saying that.
Like
you watch the
legitimately.
shirts, and they stay the same. They don't. So it's great.
And they got the deal with the actual starter jackets, like with starter. I had this jacket as a kid. I might have to get one of these. I haven't seen these in a long time.
Somewhere in the attic, probably.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody remembers a classic like Orlando Magic. That was like the classic we rocked in school.
Yeah, the Charlotte Hornets one.
The Hornets one too.
Hornets
one. That was so clean. So clean. Teal. What are we talking about on the show anyway? We'll talk starter jackets forever. But first, we'll talk about the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is Justin Fields. How impressed have you been by his start, if you have been impressed? And talk about how he's meshed in this offense with new OC Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm actually one of the people that's more impressed than the rest because I had been kind of a detractor of Fields. Right, I was below 0, and I've come all the way past that, all the way to the positives here. When he was playing with the Bears, he was a kind of quarterback we would call the one and done. The one and done when it comes to reads, right? So for those out there that aren't really familiar with how these plays are drawn up, you have multiple levels of reads, right? Say you have a slant and then a go and then a crossing route. The quarterback looks at the first read, which is a slant, right? He might look at that 3 steps from the drop, and then he looks to the go route after that. If that's not open, to maybe chuck it up deep. And then if none of that's there, you're supposed to look for the late developing route across the middle. With the Bears, he really truly was. He would look at the slant and then he would look to run. And as an offensive coordinator, there's nothing more frustrating. You draw up this beautiful play, and that third read gets open across the middle, and the guy's not even looking for it. Man, it kills you, and that's why he's a guy that in fantasy football world, you don't care because you love that. Like, he was QB6 in fantasy despite only throwing for 2,200 yards. On this team with this offense, and I'll tell you what, people give Arthur Smith a lot of, they like to make jokes and they like to make fun of him. His scheme is custom built for this type of guy because it factors that in. It factors in the fact that he's going to move into the equation, right? And that's why we're seeing a guy that's actually now going through his progressions, because the progressions factor in that he's going to move. You saw it last week with the play to Freiermuth, where he moved the pocket and Freiermuth was continuing the route. So, I mean, I'm loving what we're seeing so far. There are definitely some things that I want to see them take to another level or change the way they're doing it. But I mean, you have to be pumped on Fields. He's on pace for 1,000 more yards than he's ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because it seems like his fantasy value has diminished, but his on the field quarterback play has been upgraded. Is his fantasy value trending up though?
So it is. I think what we're seeing is, at first, he was running an offense that was built for Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. That's what it was, right? Where it's like they know that Russ is not as mobile, but Russ can't extend the play. So you still saw elements of that in it. Now you're going to see, I think, more of this, more where it's curtailed to Fields, as they were committing to Fields as being the guy, which you probably will see some more design runs. And I mean, especially as Russell Wilson actually gets healthy, then you actually have a backup quarterback, right? Like right now, when you have no backup, it's hard to do a lot of design runs, but we're going to see more of that. We saw the 2 rushing touchdowns this past week. And what I love about Arthur Smith, and he did this with Ryan Tannehill. People forget that Ryan Tannehill was QB7 that year, is that he knows that when you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford, the play is exactly 8 seconds long or shorter. These guys, when you call a play for them, they're throwing the pass 95% of the time. The other 5% are sacks and throwaways, 95% of the time. With Justin Fields, both here and with the previous regime, that number is 82%, both with them and so far this year, because there are scrambles. There are, there's obviously going to be some sacks when you got a guy like that, but and there's throwaways, but you have to factor that in. But with that, you also get the extra 3 seconds at the end of these plays. And Arthur Smith knows how to utilize that. He knows how to tell these guys, hey, don't give up on these routes. Once you run your route, kind of look back, and if you haven't heard a whistle yet, come back to the play or go deep. And I think that's one of the elements that I think is unfortunately missing is that with like Russell Wilson, you always had Tyler Lockett, and he would never give up on the play, and everyone would forget about him, and Russ would extend the play. Let me ask you guys, as Steelers guys, I mean, Van Jefferson is a good, in my opinion, next man up. Like he's the son of a coach, right? He can play every position, but can he do anything special? Like I don't know if they quite have a guy on the roster. I'm hoping maybe Roman Wilson kind of gets up to speed. No, you guys not loving Roman Wilson?
No, I'm not loving Van Jefferson. Jumped the gun on that one. He just, I mean, the one season of production with Matt Stafford, of course, in that Rams offense, and he has done nothing since.
Right.
Arthur Smith had him last year, and I think he caught 14 balls in an Atlanta offense that wasn't necessarily very good anyway. I think he has 5 catches on the year through 3 games or something like that, maybe 6 for minimal yardage. He's dropping on the depth chart. Roman Wilson, you said it. He is the knight in shining armor who could potentially save this receiving corps.
Come on.
Are you adding him in leagues right now? Are we talking deep leagues?
I sent a tweet today. I said three guys to look for under 10% rostered on Yahoo. I said Jalen Polk because he led the Patriots in routes running snaps. I mean, you're hoping for a QB change. I threw out Jalen McMillan as a guy for the Buccaneers, where if Chris Godwin or Mike Evans goes down, he already beat out Trey Palmer, right? And then I said Roman Wilson. And Mike Tomlin said it himself because they asked Tomlin, they're like, this guy's healthy. Why is he playing? And he said that he got hurt 6 games into padded practice. So he actually hasn't even run the plays. He hasn't been out there practicing the plays. It's like saying to somebody like, you go to, 5% of the classes. Are you ready to take the test? No, he's not ready yet. And you saw actually and again, people, I don't want to risk somebody clipping this and being like, oh, Coop said that Roman Wilson is this guy. But you saw it with rookie Odell Beckham Jr. He was hurt the entire offseason. He missed the first 4 games. When he first got out there, he wasn't doing much. Like he had a couple games where he played like 30-40% of the snaps, 40, 50 yards or whatever. Once he figured out the playbook and how things work and became a full-time player, his wheels up. And I look around at Roman Wilson and I say, who's stopping him? Calvin Austin you've got guys in Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson that coaches love. Calvin Austin can play special teams. He can do all the extra things, but he's not going to be a world beater. Van Jefferson knows every position. He's the perfect next man up, the 4th guy, because if anyone gets hurt, right? Like as you ask why Zach Pascal keeps getting jobs. Well, Zach Pascal knows every position on the field. That's Van Jefferson. Like I said, his dad is the wide receiver coach for, I believe, the Cardinals, right?
Perfect 4. Came into the season as a Steelers.
Yeah,
that's the problem. It's not his fault. Like we make sure, like we're being hard on Van, but I have to point out it is not his fault. He's a perfect 4, but he came in with the expectations that this team set and the fan base set that Pickens and Jefferson were the starters. Not to cut you off, but that is why.
You're exactly right. Yeah, they love him because he saves roster spots, right? That's why. If your backups are guys like A.T. Perry that only plays split end, he can't play slot, he can't play flanker, right? Then you have to have more guys on the roster. Or you could just have one Van Jefferson to back everybody else up. But to your point, you don't want Van Jefferson doing the job that other teams have T. Higgins doing. No. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan.
So this was kind of a perfect segue. And again, like we did it with Brandon Ayuk. It's like beating a dead horse. And I don't know, maybe getting kind of a national take on it. Davante Adams, obviously, Jets. I mean, how serious? What percentage would you give him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler? And what do you think about that whole situation? Do you think that will possibly solve some of the problems as we talked to, finding a number 2?
Yeah, that boils down to because they have the ability to create the money long term, which is the problem for a lot of these other teams. Is that you're taking on this contract, and if he doesn't pan out, it doesn't just hurt this year. It hurts next year. It hurts the year after, right? I will say this. He wants to go play with Rodgers. He wants to go play with Derek Carr. That's obvious. Those are his friends, right? After that, you got to look at some of these situations. And people keep saying, oh, he should go to the Chiefs. What incentive is there to trade Davante Adams to your division rival, right? And whatever any team, think about this. If you're the Steelers and they're the Chiefs, whatever pick the Chiefs offer, you can offer the same exact pick because everyone, their pick is 32. right? Like everyone says in your mind, that team is 4-0. They're back-to-back Super Bowl champions. That pick's 32. So any other pick is more valuable, right? So it is interesting. And I will say this speaks to Mike Tomlin that through all this time, think about the knuckleheads you guys have had, right? Like
if he can tame Antonio Brown, first off, he just still deserves an award for that.
Le'Veon Bell on the same team. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, James Harrison is insane. He's an insane person. I love him, but he's a crazy person. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have had, I mean, even like some of the guys that didn't pan out, Martavis Bryant,
Mike loved him.
Yeah. And then you got, like, think about this. If you had a team that was 2-2, like 500 team, and you beat the Ravens this year, and Mike Tomlin's the coach, you're excited to play. But the Raiders right now are 2-2, and Antonio Pierce can't keep these guys from wanting to leave. Like, that's why Mike Tomlin's the most valuable here. I even got my in honor of the show, I got my Mike Tomlin glasses right here.
Wow.
Let's go. That'll be the clip, not the Roman Wilson.
I tell you,
Jimmy, make sure you clip that right there.
Here's the clip right here. If Mike Tomlin was the coach of the Raiders and the team was 2-2, and Davante Adams is talking all this trade talk, this is how you end all that trade talk. Mike Tomlin goes,
"Wow, you're right.
There you go.
I've seen that.
There you go. It's done." So I'll tell you, for fantasy football, I personally wouldn't want it. Why? Right. Because I love Pat Freiermuth. And last year, if you look at the PPR, every top 12 tight end in PPR. This doesn't happen every year, but every top 12 tight end in PPR was either the first or second target on their team. They were all top 2 on their team in targets by the end of the year. You put Devante Adams on this team, that's a 10 target a game guy. He's had 10 targets a game for 6 straight years. Last 2 years, 175, 180. And then you got George Pickens. And I mean, that puts Freiermuth as the third fiddle. And I'm sure you as Steelers fans are cool with that. But me, as a fantasy football guy that loves his tight ends, I'm like, let's leave Pat Freiermuth. I need Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, we all need Muth. It's crazy. They went from saying Heath to Muth, and some things never change with tight ends in Pittsburgh. But I'm glad we were able to ink him. We had Pat on the show, actually, like right after he got drafted. Just an all around great guy. So got to get him involved as much as we can.
He didn't like the nickname Baby Gronk for what.
Nah, he didn't. We did.
Nah, you don't want to be baby anybody. You want to be your own man. Yeah. I will say, I like Muth. I like calling him the Fryer Truck.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And to your point on the Muth thing, I used to love watching those old Ravens versus Steelers games, because it's like you guys would have the ball and everybody would go Heath. Yeah. And then the Ravens would get the ball and everybody would go Heap, because they had Todd Heap. Like those Todd Heap versus
he was a great I can't stand the Ravens, but he was a good fantasy tight end for me for years
for sure
in the beginning. But yeah, so one more question, and then tell everyone what you got going on before we get you out of here too. Just great all around talk. Might even have to throw some basketball in there as well. But just George Pickens, he's due for a touchdown. Do you think that maybe this is the week? Steelers in prime time. I just think that he's due.
Yeah.
Maybe we could give, if you have a sick pick for us, Jimmy, if you want to run that. And I think
we'll get that after. You start with George. Is he ready to break out?
Yeah, I'll give it to you. And I'll tell you what, with George, like the Cowboys are missing their like good lockdown corner. Deron Bland is that guy, and he's not going to play. Then they have, Kalen Carson's hurt, and they were starting Andrew Booth Jr. last week, who was getting beat like a drum. And they were rotating them around. I mean, Malik Neighbors was being covered by Andrew Booth Jr. at times, which is a nightmare. And even with Trayvon Diggs has that like boomer bust mentality. He reminds me of, as a Patriots fan, he reminds me of Asante Samuel, where it's like, it's awesome when he gets it and it's a pick six, but a lot of times it could be a touchdown the other way. So I think if I'm going to pick a week for Pickens to be the guy, this is it. I mean, we all watched the Broncos game. Patrick Surtain is like a black hole for fantasy production because he's so good, but also if you beat him, he'll just grab you, right? Like he was just grabbing Pickens. He has like 7 penalties for almost 100 yards this year on it's like 6 for 84 or something like that. It's like, So Patrick Surtain, terrible matchup. People out there, George Pickens going to be just fine.
All right, we're going to put you on the spot. We,
There you go.
listen, it's fluid. It could change within 3 days. I got to give you that, right? Always throw that
Yeah.
out there. But we want a sick pick. First, let's run this sick graphic.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Early prediction?
There you go.
Uh-oh. -2.5.
You should have just kept the glasses on. Kept the glasses.
Here it is.
Good.
So Mike Tomlin,
All
sick pick of the week. I'm telling you, I'm bought in. I'm bought in on this Ryan Grubb offense with the Seahawks, folks. I wish I could give you the Steelers one, but that could be more of a toss.
As long as our viewers can make some money, that's all that matters.
This is where I think the moolah is. I do not believe in Daniel Jones personally. I think he's a fine player, but the dink and dunk stuff to Wan'Dale Robinson's not going to cut it. And Malik Neighbors this week is going to get Tariq Woolen. So he could have a tough time here. And I love this Ryan Grubb offense. The Shane Waldron stuff was not doing it. They were all the tight end rotating. They brought in a guy that can actually use 3 wide receivers. Geno Smith actually looks good. And I'll tell you, this team is so loaded up. If a wide receiver goes down, they still have 2 great ones. Even Jake Bobo is actually okay. If Kenneth Walker goes down, I mean, Zach Charbonnet scored 2 touchdowns the game that he missed. I mean, this team is pretty deep. AJ Barner stepped up and scored last week with Noah Fant banged up. I think the Seahawks are deep, and I think they're going to cover the 6.5 on Seattle. Whether it's 6.5, 7 at the time you're watching this video, pay for the hook if you got to. I hate betting 7, but 6.5, that's the number. Seahawks, baby.
There you have it. And hey, tell everyone what you have coming up and where they can find you. Again, this has been a great episode. We'll definitely have to do it again. Thank you again, Andrew.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Put me back in the rotation, man. So for me, I know people, tight end is kind of my specialty. People looking for that content. If you want the free look at my rest of season rankings over at Fantasy Alarm, just check out the waiver wire article. I put them in there for free. I'm also going to tweet out later on Thursday, every Thursday and every Sunday morning. I tweet out my weekly rankings. And then, check me out on, I'm on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube and then also Sirius XM Thursday and Friday night 6 to 8 and Sunday morning 10 to 11. Get those lineups.
That's a nice spot. I like that. Get you
Sunday
ready
morning.
and you're on it and you're taking it all in. Hey, we really appreciate your time. Like you said, we'll have to do it again, and we're excited to see the content you have coming out. Mike, do you want to?
No, I was just gonna say at Coop A Fiasco on Twitter X.
There
so
you
everybody go follow.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
for having me on.
Thank you,
hey,
Andrew.
good luck to your Steelers, man.
Appreciate it. Take care. Yeah, man, it's just the boys are bopping. Prime time.
We should wear our Tomlin shades. What are we doing? We're really missing the opportunity to.
Yeah, what do they call it? Like those are the aviators. Is that what
they're
they
a little
are?
bit of aviator vibe. Yeah, he's got a little bit of like Top Gun
like
to him right there. In week 1, he didn't wear a hat, and that really threw me off against the Falcons.
Yeah,
he went naked. He went naked out there, and they won. I thought he would keep going with it, but Coach T went no hat week 1 in hot Atlanta. Maybe it was too hot down there to wear the old hat.
It was in a dome, though. You would think he would.
A little bit of I mean, it's not like going to Miami, I suppose.
Hey, 'tis the season. October's here. Man, football season's in full swing. I just, make yourself some money. Shout out to all our great partnerships again.
Yep.
Use our code 6sports for DraftKings. You heard it from Andrew. Really excited too. I was actually just thinking about getting serious too, because no commercials. I really like that. And want to support radio as well. So can't wait to check him out, and make sure you guys subscribe wherever you're listening to us. We're gonna have Deshaun Elliott, Christian Kuntz coming up, and some great analysts as well as local, national. I love having these national guys on though, because it's just to get a different perspective of everything. I'm kind of like an unbiased and kind of think like, hey,
Definitely.
like where are they coming at? Like you heard what he said about Justin Fields, and so it's very interesting stuff as always. Really enjoyed the show. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, we've had folks on this show who have ripped Justin Fields left and right. A lot of them were before the season started, but the evolution, the progress, and just the change in tone is refreshing. I agree with it. And this is a big game. We'll see what he's got Sunday, because if you fall to 3-2 with 2 straight losses, then pressure builds.
Going to be good.
Russell, no doubt. 4-1. with a big win over the Cowboys, it's going to remain his job. So
Steelers in prime time. It's like, don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. Don't bet against Mike Tomlin.
We got a prediction. That's what we'll bring up. It's our last show before.
Yeah. I honestly think that the Steelers defense wakes up and Justin Fields does enough to win. I'm going to take Steelers by 10. So I'm going to say 24-14.
Okay. I like that. So you got the under. I'm going to go just a completely random score because I think the over somehow is going to hit 26-19. Steelers by a touchdown.
And you want to know, you'll get a kick out of this. So I actually just fantasy, because we just had Andrew on, and made me think. I'm literally, for the first time, I got Justin Fields off the waiver wire. He sat on my bench last week, got 30 fantasy points. I swapped him out. Dak got me like 16. I'm going with the hometown guy. I got to the Steelers. And like I said, listen, I know I'm not really sold on Fields, but I'm rooting for him to progress each game. And it's a good problem to have when you have a veteran like Russ, because you got to understand that injuries happen. And I'm not wishing that upon anyone, but it's a game. It's, a physical game. So I'm excited. I mean, I just think that the running backs definitely need Jaylen Warren out there. Hope he's at 100%, and just start getting Muth and George Pickens involved. And I think that, we'll see, man. It's a long season. Me personally, I know I don't put too much stock until, I don't know, what would you say, like week 6 or 7? And that's when you can kind of like
week 8, like a halfway barometer for me.
I mean, but I don't, strength of schedule plays into it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's, 32 teams are the best of the best. So any given Sunday, as they say. We'll end on that. Jimmy, what do you say? Any given Sunday, go Steelers. Jimmy, take it.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.